Usually when you step into, like, a fantasy adventure, there are certain expectations, right? Like a
Yeah.
straightforward heroism kind of thing.
Yeah, the classic hero's journey.
Exactly. You walk into a town, there's a clear bad guy. Um, the local priest is this beacon of unwavering faith.
Right, right.
And, the people building your weapons are these stoic, serious engineers.
It's a very comfortable, predictable rhythm.
Right.
The parameters of morality and logic are clearly defined from the very moment you roll the dice.
But then you look at the source material we are unpacking today, and suddenly every single one of those tropes it's completely inverted.
Oh, totally.
I mean, imagine walking into a frontier town that is absolutely paralyzed with terror because a massive blue dragon just did, like a low-altitude flyover.
Which is terrifying on its own.
Right. And meanwhile, your adventuring party's cleric is experiencing a literal existential crisis of faith. And on top of all that, your only hope for survival lies in a secret weapons facility run by gnomes who cope with the imminent threat of gruesome death by throwing spontaneous club dance parties.
It is such a wild pivot. But, welcome to our custom-tailored deep dive. We are taking the source material you've shared with us.
The character compendiums, the location notes, all that.
Exactly, the highly detailed session recaps. And we're extracting the underlying mechanics and meaning of this incredible narrative. Our mission today is to unpack a critical juncture, which is the events of Session 3 from this really high-stakes campaign on the Sword Coast.
Yeah, and to really understand the weight of what happens in the session, we kind of have to look at the psychological pressure cooker these characters are trapped in.
Oh, definitely.
Just a quick reminder of the immediate stakes carrying over from Session 2. The town of Phandalin was just paid a visit by an old man with an eye patch.
Right, who turned out to be the chaotic god Talos in disguise.
Literally a god. And he essentially delivered this supervillain monologue promising a cleansing storm of destruction.
Yeah, punctuated by a blinding lightning strike.
Mm-hmm. And then a massive blue dragon named Salat flew overhead. So the town is just on a razor's edge.
And, the psychological pressure isn't just external. The internal dynamics of this adventuring party are incredibly fragile right now.
Oh, for sure.
Look at the immediate aftermath of that dragon's appearance. The townsfolk are terrified of the sky, naturally, but they are also staring daggers at the party.
Right, specifically at Boris Rightwell, the cleric.
Yeah, because, Boris was known to actively worship Talos.
Which is, it's just the worst timing. The very god who just threatened to wipe Phandalin off the map.
Exactly. You literally cannot have a worse public relations problem than being the local representative for the deity actively plotting the town's apocalypse.
It's bad. And it forces this profound personal crisis for Boris.
Yeah, we know from his compendium that he is a former sailor who survived a horrific shipwreck.
Right. His entire crew died in the freezing water.
Mm-hmm. And he believed Talos, the god of storms, spared him. That core belief was basically the only thing holding his sanity together after such a traumatic event.
Yeah, survivor's guilt is heavy.
But standing in Phandalin, watching Talos terrorize innocent people, that foundation just completely crumbles. So Boris retreats to reflect at the local Shrine of Luck.
And while he's there, the goddess Tamora actually visits him.
Yes. But Tamora doesn't just offer him a new job in the divine pantheon. She completely deconstructs his entire worldview.
Right. She offers this radically different perspective on his shipwreck survival.
Yeah.
She essentially tells him that, well, maybe he wasn't saved by a god at all.
Right. Maybe the storm just passed.
Yeah, maybe the tides just shifted naturally. Maybe he was just, lucky.
And consider the theological implications of that for a society built on divine intervention.
Right.
Tamora isn't demanding tithes or daily prayers.
She actually points to the emptiness of her own shrine as proof of her philosophy, right?
Exactly. Her followers don't worship her in the traditional subservient sense. They simply believe in their own good fortune. She looks at Boris and asks, "Don't we all make our own luck?"
Imagine you got a prestigious, full-ride university scholarship, right?
Okay.
And your whole life you've been writing these tearful thank you letters to this benevolent billionaire who you thought sponsored your education.
Right.
Then one day, someone sits you down and says, there was no billionaire. It was just a massive clerical error in the admissions office that worked out in your favor. You're on your own now. Pick your own major.
Wow. Yeah, the vertigo of that realization is immense.
Yeah.
Suddenly, your defining trauma is stripped of its grand cosmic meaning and reduced to random chance.
Which is terrifying, but also kind of freeing.
Totally. And we see this manifest physically in his abilities. He is stripped of his light domain.
Right. He loses his connection to that blinding, radiant energy.
hmm Instead, he shifts into manipulating raw probability and storm winds, gaining Timora's holy symbol in the process.
But wait, hold on. Is Timora actually doing this out of the goodness of her heart?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, stealing a devoted follower from the exact god who just threatened the town feels less like a benevolent divine rescue and more like, I don't know, petty cosmic high school drama.
That's a great point. The Pantheon in this setting treats the Sword Coast like a sprawling strategic chessboard. The gods are highly competitive, and they rarely provide epiphanies without a price tag attached.
So she has an ulterior motive.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
Timora is actively trying to counter Tylos's chaos and establish a foothold in the region. So while her philosophy of making your own luck is genuinely empowering for Boris.
Right. It gives him a healthier way to process his survivor's guilt.
Exactly. But she is absolutely using him as a pawn to counter a rival deity. It's a strategic transaction disguised as a spiritual awakening.
That is so interesting. And, you know, while Boris is wrestling with the nature of free will versus divine intervention, the rest of the party is dealing with the very grounded, very immediate problem of Phandalin's complete civic collapse.
Yes, the more practical matters.
Right. Whiffer, Redier, and Vitrovia head over to the Phandalin Miners Exchange to look for solutions.
And the Miners' Exchange is where the past unexpectedly catches up with Whiffer Brightblade. The party runs into a dwarf prospector named Dazzlin Greyshard.
Oh, and he recognizes the Brightblade family crest etched into Whiffer's sword.
Exactly. Which is a massive moment for Whiffer, because he's the scion of the Brightblade Iron X Company, and his parents disappeared years ago on some highly secretive research and development mission.
Right, and he has had zero leads on their whereabouts.
Nothing. Until now. Dazzlin hands him the first real breadcrumb he has had in years. The dwarf reveals he actually met Whiffer's parents when they were scouting locations for a hidden R&D outpost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Dazzlin's own facilities weren't equipped for whatever they were building, but he points the party toward the settlement of Gnomengarde, suggesting his parents had a working relationship with the rock gnomes there.
Which instantly gives Whiffer a personal stake in what is otherwise just, you know, a town defense mission. But while they are getting these clues, they are also navigating the sheer incompetence of Phandalin's leadership. Harbin Wester is the actual mayor of Phandalin, but he handles his existential terror by simply throwing money at the problem.
Classic Harbin.
Right. He tasks the party with going to Gnomengarde to buy a rumored dragon shooting invention. He gives them 150 gold pieces, 2 potions, and basically says, keep whatever change is left over if you can negotiate a better price.
Which you really have to contrast with Helia Thornton, who they meet at the Miners' Exchange.
Oh, Helia.
Yeah, Helia is the guildmaster, but more importantly, she's a calculating agent of the Zentarum.
The shadowy organization.
Exactly. They slowly subjugate regions through wealth, debt, and influence, rather than outright violence. Harbin is visibly terrified, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Helia is calmly assessing how to leverage a dragon attack to increase her own political capital.
Which begs the question. Harbin Wester is paralyzed by fear and relying on mercenaries, while Helia Thornton clearly possesses the actual organizational power and intelligence to run the town. Why on earth is the party still taking orders and money from Harbin?
Are they vastly underestimating Helia's long game?
Yeah, like why not side with the competent person?
Well, the inertia of established civic power is hard to overcome. Harbin holds the official title, and he controls the town's treasury.
True, he has the cash.
Right. And the party needs resources immediately to survive the dragon. Haley is playing a multi-generational game of chess. Siding with her might give them better tactical support, but it risks handing the entire infrastructure of the town over to a criminal syndicate.
Ah, I see.
So the party's making a calculated choice to stick with a devil they know, a weak, easily manipulated mayor over the highly competent, deeply dangerous Zentarum agent.
And speaking of devils, you know, for Reader, the concept of a hidden puppet master is already hitting way too close to home.
Oh, definitely.
Because during the scramble for resources, Radier uncovers a deeply unsettling detail. Harbin doesn't actually know who brokered the deal to bring Raider to Phandalin in the first place.
Yeah, the psychological weight of that for Radier cannot be overstated. I mean, he is a monk, literally bound by an infernal pact to a devil named Ganthor.
Which is heavy enough.
Right. Finding out that your physical presence in this town was orchestrated by an unknown third party means you aren't just a mercenary. You are a piece on someone else's board.
It really underscores the total lack of control the party has over their own circumstances.
Hmm.
Even their minor interactions in town, like meeting the young rapier student Thistle training under the theater director Bajak,
Oh, yeah, Thistle.
it just shows a population desperate for heroes while the established leadership is entirely hollow. So Harbin Wester tries to buy his way out of terror.
But throwing money at a problem only works if there's someone willing to sell you a solution.
Exactly. And that leads the group out of Phandalin and toward Gnomengarde to buy this anti-air weapon. And this location. This is where the tone of the narrative completely fractures into something brilliant and bizarre.
It really does. Gnomengarde is a settlement carved into the base of a mountain, built around a roaring waterfall, populated entirely by reclusive rock gnomes, and crucially, it's heavily saturated in unpredictable wild magic.
Right. So, I mean, imagine walking into a high-stakes military bunker, okay? You are there to purchase a weapon of mass destruction to shoot down an apocalyptic dragon.
Stakes are incredibly high.
You walk through the heavy blast doors, the fate of a town resting on your shoulders, and you find the entire engineering staff throwing a massive club dance party because the commanding officer is paranoid about the furniture.
It's like a bunker, yes, but it's actually worse. Because in a bunker, the threat is outside. In Gnomengarde, the monster is inside the house.
Literally.
Yeah. The gnomes have instituted these spontaneous dance parties, triggered by a designated dance bell, as a hysterical psychological coping mechanism.
Because they speak entirely in the third person, they are dancing wildly, but it's not just quirky fantasy flavor, it's a trauma response.
A huge trauma response. Their two rulers, King Corbos and King Nerkly, are locked away in their quarters. King Corbos has completely lost his mind because he discovered that a shape-shifting mimic has infiltrated the caves.
The monster is literally in the furniture. It can look like a chair, a chest, or in this specific case, I think it was a barrel.
Yes, a barrel. And two gnomes have already vanished, eaten by this entity.
God, that's horrifying.
Right. You have an isolated, highly intelligent community trapped underground with a predator that camouflages perfectly into their domestic environment. Their leaders have abandoned them to hide. The dance parties are just pure hysterical denial of their imminent mortality.
And adding to this nightmare is the environment itself. The caves are supercharged with concentrated wild magic, and that is not just background scenery.
No, it's very active.
It is actively torturing Radier, because Radier is a ghostwriter. He houses an ancient spirit of vengeance named Zarathos, alongside another demonic personality named Sog. And holding those entities back requires an ironclad mental cage.
And the environmental magic in Gnomengarde acts like static interference against that mental cage. The raw, unfiltered arcane energy is violently reacting with the infernal pacts binding his soul.
Well, it's breaking him down.
It is actively weakening his mental fortitude. He is sweating, shaking, fighting a desperate internal war to keep from transforming into a demon, while all around him oblivious gnomes are doing the cha-cha.
The tension in that scene is just incredible. But amidst this chaotic rave and Reader's silent agony, the party manages to locate the Inventor Factor.
Yeah, and she has built exactly what they need. A rotating platform equipped with 4 heavy auto-loading crossbows.
Nice.
So Whiffer steps up to negotiate the purchase. He actually secures the auto-loading heavy crossbow system for 125 gold pieces and a barrel of crabs.
A barrel of crabs. And since Harbin gave them 150 gold from the Phandalin treasury, Whiffer successfully pockets the remaining 25 gold pieces for the party.
A little bit of wartime profiteering.
Exactly, which shows how quickly they are adapting to the mercenary reality of the Sword Coast.
Right. But the weapon system is only half the reason they are there. The real narrative payload is delivered when the party finally speaks with the foremost rock gnome inventors, Fibblestib and Dabbledob.
Who actually remember Whiffer's parents.
Yes, Ricard and Mila Brightblade. They reveal the true nature of the Brightblade's research. Whiffer's parents were trying to build a specialized weapon, a true dragon slayer, often referred to in their notes as the Void Weapon.
But they hit a snag, right?
A massive theoretical roadblock. Forging this weapon required the infusion and stabilization of highly conflicting magical properties. Specifically, they had to unify pure divine grace with the chaotic corruption of the abyss.
Which usually just results in a catastrophic explosion. If you force celestial energy and demonic energy together, they don't mix. They annihilate each other.
Right. So the Brightblades came to Gnomengarde because the gnomes possessed the only known organic conduit capable of stabilizing that volatile reaction.
The bark of the ancient Gulthius tree.
Exactly.
And this is the massive twist that ties the entire campaign together. because the gnomes reveal that the Gulthias tree originally sat right at the mouth of Gnomengarde, but it isn't there anymore.
No, it's gone.
It was carefully uprooted and stolen by a blood anchorite named Granick and his orc army. They loaded this massive ancient tree onto a giant cart and just hauled it away.
Which is a masterclass in narrative connectivity. The removal of the Gulthias tree is the direct cause of the wild magic instability plaguing Gnomengarde.
Oh.
Yeah, the tree was acting as a massive arcane anchor, absorbing and regulating the magical runoff of the settlement. Without it, the energy is completely feral.
So let's follow the chain of causality here. The tree is stolen, the magic goes feral. The feral magic destabilizes the gnome's environment, and it is the exact same feral magic that is currently tearing away at Ridier's mental cage, causing him agonizing pain as Zarathos and Sog try to break free. Doesn't that mean getting the tree back isn't just about finding a missing crafting component for Whiffer's parents' weapon? It's literally a matter of keeping Radier's soul intact.
Exactly. The stakes have shifted from civic duty to profound personal survival. Reader's ability to remain a conscious human being might literally depend on recovering that tree to stabilize the magic around and inside him.
Wow. And the party is gearing up for exactly that kind of fight. I mean, this excursion to Gnomengarde wasn't just an information-gathering mission. It fundamentally altered their capabilities on the battlefield.
Oh, the loot they walked away with is wild.
Yeah. Vitrovia obtained a sorting wizarding hat, which expands her foundational ability to bend reality and shape magic on the fly. Whiffer received the Bright Blade Battle Belt and a sword charm, so he can now move faster than humanly possible, reacting to threats in milliseconds, while his blade hums with a latent, destructive energy behind every swing.
And Boris acquired a clockwork amulet, which perfectly aligns with his new Timora-granted ability to manipulate probability rather than relying on raw divine light.
Right.
And the gnome engineers physically altered Redier's weapons. He gained pyrotechnic capabilities, and his greatsword was infused with a pole of extension.
Which means mid-swing, without even breaking his stride, Redder can transform his heavy sword into a massive spear, completely dominating the physical space around him. The way they interact with their environment and their enemies has been totally rewritten.
If we look at the trajectory of this single session, the transformation of the party is just staggering.
Yeah, I mean, the party walked into Session 3 as entirely reactive survivors. There were just people who barely survived an ambush on the road, limping into a town that was actively being threatened by a god and a dragon. They were on their heels, desperate and outgunned.
And they walked out of Session 3 as proactive players on a cosmic chessboard.
Yeah.
Boris has clarified his theology and his powers. They are carrying artifacts that alter time, space, and probability. They have secured a functional, auto-loading anti-air defense system for the town.
Not to mention the crab barrel.
Right, the crab barrel. But most importantly, Whiffer has a deeply personal, tangible connection to his parents' legacy through the stolen Gulthias tree.
So they aren't just reacting to the storm of destruction anymore. They have a direction. They have the firepower.
They have transitions from victims of circumstance to architects of their own fate. But you know what? It leaves us with a lingering thought that I want to pose to you, the listener, tying back to the lore the gnomes dropped about the Brightblade's research.
Oh, let's hear it.
So the engineers revealed that Whiffer's parents needed the Gulthias tree to stabilize conflicting magical properties. Specifically, the unification of divine grace and infernal chaos to forge their ultimate void weapon against the storm of destruction. But take a step back and look at the actual composition of this adventuring party. You have Whiffer, a celestial Aasimar fighter carrying divine grace. You have Redier, a demon-possessed monk housing infernal chaos.
Oh, wow.
You have Boris, a fate-torn cleric manipulating probability, and Vitrovia, a tiefling druid channeling the earth. Could it be that the ultimate weapon against the storm of destruction isn't a physical sword at all?
Wait, you mean...
What if the conflicting magical properties the Bright Blades were trying to stabilize are actually the fused souls of the heroes themselves?
Man, if that's true, then walking into a dancing wild magic bunker wasn't just a pit stop to buy a crossbow. It was the exact moment they stumbled onto the blueprints of their own souls. We're going to leave you to mull that one over. Until next time, keep diving deep.